Hey guys, it's Carly. Welcome back to Mostly Dating, a First Rounds on Media production. First Rounds on Me is a dating app that's designed to get you off your phone and on a date in real life. Head to the link in our show notes to learn more and get your first month free with the code Mostly Dating. Today we have a third time returning guest, right? Is this your third time?
Third time.
Okay.
Third time's a charm.
Yes, we have Michael Tennant. He is an author and entrepreneur and the creator of the Actually Curious card decks, which I talk about all the time. And the decks have actually, I learned this from a recent Instagram post of yours. You said that they've been featured by Beyonce, which is so cool.
That was our first break moment.
That's amazing.
And we were just like hustling away during the pandemic and started seeing traffic come into the site. And I went and looked at the analytics and I was like, whoa, we're getting traffic off of Beyonce.com.
Oh my God. That's crazy. So that's how you found out? Just an influx of traffic?
Yeah. Her stylist had created a website called, I want to say like blackowned.com. Black Parade. It was called the Black Parade. And they curated a bunch of Black-owned brands to put on right after George Floyd, and we were one of them.
Wow, that's incredible. And then Pharrell is also an investor, right?
Yes.
Very cool.
Pharrell's nonprofit, Black Ambition, is an investor.
Cool. All right. So you, like I said, you've been on 2 times. The first episode we have with you, we talked all about your background. We talked about how you started your company, and we talked all about empathy, which was such a good conversation. So everybody listening who has not listened to that, I will put it in the show notes. The next time you came back was in 2024, and we talked all about values. An amazing conversation. We did an event after that, which was a virtual event where we all discovered our values, which was so cool. And today I'm having you back because you are about to launch, by the time this episode is released, it will be available for order, a journal called Abundance. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And welcome back. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm blessed, and thank you for the recap.
Yeah.
I'm like, now I know the arc of our conversation.
Exactly. And we have some new listeners here, so I like giving that recap. And like I said, both of those episodes are linked in the show notes. Today, we are going to talk all about abundance, and we're going to talk about the general idea of abundance, the journal, how you came up with the idea of it, kind of like how it works and how you suggest people use it. But also, because this is a dating podcast, as you know, we'll talk a lot about the connection between abundance and abundance mindset and your dating life and your relationships and everything that comes into play there. So I would love to just kind of start by having you take the floor and just define what abundance means to you.
Well, abundance for me means understanding on a deep level what makes me happy, what makes you happy, what moves you, what will feel sustainable and lasting. I think that part of the reason we explore abundance is because we believe that when people feel more full and know how to get there, that they are more capable of compassion. They're more capable of finding empathy when it feels hard. So abundance really is almost like what we're all seeking.
Yeah.
That elusive meaning of life.
Yeah, like a feeling of a full life.
Yeah.
So when we had this workshop, which I mentioned, where you took us all through an exercise where we all discovered or kind of uncovered what our core values are. And I actually don't know if I told you this at the time, but my mom was on the call. She loved it. She made sure to make me promise that I would tell you that she loved you so much. After the event, I was talking with her on the phone, and abundance was both of ours. Like we had that, had that in our list of 5 values, which is so cool. But it was so interesting to me because my mom and I have had a number of conversations about the idea of like striving for wealth. We had such an interesting conversation about the idea that abundance doesn't always mean, a lot of times it doesn't mean like wanting a lot of money. It could mean wanting a lot of love in your life or wanting a lot of opportunity or a lot of like anything. It's just like you said, having that fulfilled vibe and feeling in your life. In your perspective, what is something that you are seeking abundance of in your life?
Well, I mean, I think first, a lot of people commingle monetary wealth with abundance.
Yes.
And in a way, my work means to deprogram that, because that that relationship that we have with acquiring more and more wealth oftentimes brings about so much suffering. It definitely brings about so much distance. The way that I came upon this topic of abundance and even working on empathy was through loss. And what happened for me is, after experiencing a really deep loss, I lost 2 of my older brothers. I almost, I hit my emotional rock bottom.
Yeah.
I always call it an emotional rock bottom. I was working through some low-level substance, addiction, substance use things at the time too. All things that I kind of just normalized.
Yeah.
But hitting that rock bottom kind of forced me to really think about and find the things that were of deep meaning for me, things that I could anchor around and start to rebuild myself around. In some ways, build my confidence for the first time.
Yeah.
Get really clear about, being in such a tender place when working through grief. It's almost like it heightens your emotional sensitivity. So I was just had to become really specific about how I was using my time because everything was almost so, I don't want to say triggering, but so yeah, during that time I got to do a lot of soul searching, and I, ultimately developed very specific lists of things that would make me happy.
Yeah.
What's on that list today? Transparently, I've been trying to manifest more material wealth.
Yeah, me too. Don't mean to say that's a bad thing at all.
Right. Because there's this funny thing where, let's see, some of the things that were on the list when I was at my rock bottom.
Yeah.
I wanted to find my person.
Were you in a relationship at that point, or you had just come out of a relationship?
I had just come out of a relationship, and I had just started to date my now wife, Caroline. And I mean, there's so much I could say about Caroline. In reflecting on the abundance that has even landed and become even more clear for me over the years is just how safe and held.
Yeah.
Among all kinds of other things. She's beautiful. She's smart. We had amazing dates. We just we spend nothingness time together.
Yeah.
Really. In fact, there's almost there is no nothingness time, because we kind of just ebb and flow into conversations and ideas. Caroline's also my business partner. She's the creative director. She's the producer who helped put this together. What else was on the list?
So just to interrupt you for a second, the relationship with Caroline, when you first met her, were you still grieving in that time? Would you say that you met her while you were sort of in this emotional rock bottom?
Right. So we met before my first brother passed away.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she actually went back to Copenhagen. I think she was already back in Copenhagen when my brother died. And so a lot of that safety and that support and that was done remotely. I had a lot of sleepless nights, and the time zones also worked really well where when I was reaching out and where there was no one that I could find to talk to, she was there. And we'll get into this more, I'm sure, throughout the interview. But one of the things that I say to her all the time, and I tell other people, is that I have never felt the level of safety with another person, not even my parents, sadly, that I have in this relationship.
Yeah.
And I think maybe my dating pattern even prior to that was actually to chase things that felt unsafe, that were actually more akin to the volatility in my family.
Because you were kind of accustomed to that feeling and it felt normal to you?
I certainly wasn't unaccustomed to it.
Right, yeah.
It's not something that I thought I deserved something different. I didn't know any different. The characteristics weren't exactly the same, but maybe the feeling and how it landed in my body later in the relationship had a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
that I've only now recently been able to see at a distance. And so that's part of the reason why it feels so meaningful to share and be vulnerable and be transparent about how I got there. Yeah, I'm still unpacking the specific application of this work in the dating context. So, but I know, I feel really confident because I've looked back in awe of what's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you dealt with that loss. That must have been so hard. When I think about the fact that it was early on in dating Caroline, I'm curious because I do get questions, and I also have experienced some things not on this level, but in my own life and in my own relationships. Did you feel like from the start she sort of knew how to be there for you, or were there ever conversations you had to have to tell her like how you like to be comforted or what you needed from her? Because I think a lot of people can like sort of panic when they're going through something hard and they feel like their partner isn't showing up for them in the way they want them to.
Yeah. Well, so Caroline is a Cancer, I should say. So shout out to the Cancerians out there. I've learned a lot more about astrology since Caroline and I have been together, but the personality type of Cancerians are like, for the ones that they really care for, they're incredible space holders. She's an incredible listener. And
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think that I then was always like really comfortable having someone hold that much space for me. Now that I think of it, it is like a pattern that I have found, in at least in the early days of other relationships as well. People who are good listeners and willing to listen. But yeah, I mean, I think relationships, that what I'm finding is like being willing to trust someone enough to hold that space for you.
Yeah.
Finding that person who's willing to, in the particular way that you need, is so important. And that's probably why the self-discovery piece ends up being so important, or even being around someone who's willing to hold that space for you. They see something in you that they're willing to kind of like not coach you or guide you. Maybe if there's that kind of pairing that works well too.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have worked for me. It was just like a sort of a gentle allowing me to unfold into the man that I was becoming. We didn't start dating right away. In fact, we joke about it sometimes. Like I try to be like gentle about it because I don't want to be too playful about it. But I was kind of resistant about dating in the beginning. Right after my second brother had passed, and actually I needed to get away, so I flew out to Copenhagen to spend some time with Caroline. Again, like keeping this hey, I'm going to come out, but that doesn't mean that it's a relationship or anything like that. And it was there that I made this like the decision to say, F it, and to hit the road and to go out and tell people my story and play actually curious. Like the idea actually came like in the middle of the night while like I kind of woke up and told her the idea. And it was also this thing I wanted to do on my own, like as like this kind of rite of passage to take a road trip by yourself. I think we both quickly having like that shared intuition got to the potential dangers of me being a black man on the road driving through the South by myself. And she was worried for me, and she was like, hey, can I come with you? Part of the destination was going to my parents' house. So there was always like this thing where it's like, okay, well, we have to figure this out because we're not dating yet.
Yeah.
Parents are going to think that. So
was she during this time like was she saying she wanted to date and you were kind of pushing it off, or was it just?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't really that at all. So like somehow it ended up being both like the closeness that helped our relationship to mature without pressure, which ended up being the right kind of start that I needed.
Yeah.
I was actually, as I was walking here, I was talking to her a little bit about this podcast, and I was saying, like, now that I reflect with the knowledge that I have now, I feel so like a lot of the dating that I did in the past was toxic.
Wait, give an example.
I mean, I think I was thinking about what abundance looked like for me back then that I was chasing, and like, sadly, it was like volume of like attention and just like it's just like, it's not something I'm proud of today. But I think it reflects very much like the insecurity that I didn't know about myself. Like I felt like I needed to prove some level of like masculinity to my brothers, and no one was asking me to do this. It's like not like, but somehow I felt like I had this expectation to live up to some level of sexual prowess.
Which, like, I feel like in so many aspects of our lives, a lot of what we do is driven by what we want other people to see and how we want other people to perceive us. And dating is obviously just one piece of that. But I'm sure a lot of your own personal journey and the growth that you've had sort of poured into this journal, right?
Yeah, definitely poured into the journal. And the last thing I'll say, just to close that off, is I realized like I thought I was getting what I wanted, but like I was so lonely. All of these relationships were falling apart like after a time. And so, I was getting the thing that the object of my attention and the object of my energy, but I was not getting what I really needed to feel the level of wholeness and abundance that I feel today. The safety, the trust, the depth of relationship, the shorthand, the ability to do nothing together really well.
Yeah.
The ability to raise a child together, or even the willingness to trust myself to be able to bring a child into this world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a little while ago you asked me I asked me what abundance, what am I trying to bring in now? And I mentioned material abundance, and but some on the list when I was grieving were things like being able to buy a home. Caroline and I bought that home together 2 years ago. The home's appreciated $100K in value in the last 2 years. So like on paper, we're wealthier than we ever have been. But there's still this sort of a bit of like kind of wanting a little bit more of a gap between our expenses and our monthly revenues.
Yeah.
This last 2 months have been really bumpy in my life. I think you know this. Your listeners probably don't know, but I lost my dad on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And I'm grieving a lot differently than I did several years ago. It dawned on me probably from June forward has been a lot of attention towards family showing up in different ways. I have a brother who's also ill. And in the wake of like after my dad's funeral, I realized that if I had a full-time job like I did before, making, close to $200,000 a year, maybe more with bonuses, there's no way that I would have had the flexibility to show up for family in the way that I have. I said I'm grieving differently. Sometimes I kind of I'm not like having these deep moments of like weeping like I did before. It comes up in my meditations. It comes up, like I'm so grateful that Naya, my daughter, got some quality time. Like she remembers him. She gets this. She's only 2.5. She talks about him often. These are things that even though there is that gap in material wealth, that are priceless. This phase of life that I've been able to over-index on showing up for family, over-index on showing up for purpose, showing up for community, are the things that that are going to be inheritances that I get to pass on.
Yeah.
Like not just to my child, but as a model beyond me, being willing to honor and own who I was in the past and to continue to work on that and continue to heal on that and to find ways of through discussion, exploring that. Like that's a legacy that I hope I get to leave, not just in my own family, but for men for generations.
Yeah.
And women. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of abundance I'm working on unpacking at this moment.
I love that. In the journal, I started going through it because I got a copy about a week ago. You say in the beginning something along the lines of empathy starts and ends with abundance. Mm. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah. So that sentence kind of encapsulates two ideas. One of the ideas is around like the abundance of love and support that exists in the world.
Okay, I'm just going to take a quick break to tell you a little bit more about our sponsor, First Rounds on Me. So we all know the struggle that comes along with using dating apps, waiting for their reply, spending too much time texting, and then never going out in real life. First Rounds on Me changes the game by making the transition from online chat to in-person meetup as easy and as smooth as possible. So there's no endless back and forth. The app only gives you 24 hours to chat, so you'll know right away if there's a spark and if you're going to meet up. And there's no need to plan the perfect date or have endless discussions. First Rounds on Me actually has a built-in planner that makes it easy to set things up and really enjoy the moment. And it's all about quality, not quantity. So I don't believe that dating is a numbers game. It's about being intentional. On First Rounds on Me, you only get one match per day, so you can have a focused and intentional approach to dating. No more endless scrolling, just real connections. First Rounds on Me takes the pressure off dating. Head to the link in the show notes and you can get your first month for free with the code MOSTLYDATING.
I think that many of us have a lot of pride. Shame, I believe, is one of the emotions that we avoid the most and also are most motivated by without knowing. But the way shame comes in with abundance is we're afraid to ask for help. We're afraid to receive help. Receiving help is receiving love, is being seen. Being willing to ask for help is giving trust, is giving love. I'm willing to show you me at my most vulnerable.
Yeah.
That dynamic forms bonds. Those are like dynamics that get formed, between siblings, that get formed between best friends, that are easier to form when we're kids and we have maybe fewer inhibitions than it is to do as an adult. And we talk about like the loneliness epidemic, challenges that adults have making new friends. So part of it is that willingness to recognize that there's an abundance of love and support out there as long as we're willing to do the internal work to receive. The other part is, and I think this is really important right now in this moment culturally with empathy, is that I think the more you deepen in your capacity for empathy is the more you realize how hard it is, and that you can go in and out of waves. There's no debating that it's easier to give empathy to someone that you know well or that you have a familiar and that you know well and like, than it is for someone who you don't know and that you don't like, right? So it's like it's so part of the model that I teach is trying to get people as full as possible. And honoring that even when you're as full as possible, there are going to be moments when you get depleted, especially if you're giving of empathy. So, part of it is getting the individual equipped with the tools to work on themselves repeatedly, to find the new growth area and to keep expanding such that they increase their capacity for compassion when they need it most.
Yeah.
It's also to put a carrot there for you that the more that you're capable of using these tools of empathy to expand your capacity, and you can get closer to people, you can attract more people, you can be more focused on your goals, you can get aligned with people who have similar goals, you amplify one another. These are all positive, self-serving things.
Yeah.
Empathy doesn't have to be always like giving. It's actually a give and take for it to be sustainable. So, in a time where people are fatigued, there's a lot of compassion fatigue right now around us, in myself even. I think it's important for people to know very quickly how empathy can serve them personally, how it can serve their goals, how it can even be applied to their material goals or perhaps their romantic goals as well, because that work, it still will equip you to show up for people in a surprising way.
Yeah. Wait, can you define what you mean by compassion fatigue? Some people might not know it.
Yeah. So compassion fatigue is the phenomenon that we're facing after I guess like years in this political climate where the level of compassion that we may have had in the past, we just don't have it as much. Like our tank is not as capable of being as deep as it used to be. It also comes up in the medical field quite often, in education, where nurses, doctors have such extended occupational trauma, experiencing hardship, that they actually part of their bits of, they have to work at making sure that their empathy doesn't atrophy. It doesn't kind of wilt away, because they have to manage their emotions so much.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering we had on the podcast years ago, I think it was like episode 6 or 7, we had a nurse on and she talked about how she dealt with that because she saw so many terrible, really sad things at work that she had a really hard time having empathy for people that were like stressed out or upset about things that she didn't view as like monumental as the things that she was seeing, like life and death at work.
Yeah, and I think and that's why I think it's actually abundant to be able to get to a place where you go, I can imagine what might be on the other side of that bad mood, or I can imagine some of the stories that might be on the other side of that like curt demeanor.
Yeah.
Or what I might imagine what might be on the other side of that poor date.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even in like in a serious relationship, I think sometimes if you have your partner is like really venting or upset about something that you're like, this really isn't that big of a deal. Like, how do I show up for them? Do you have any advice for someone who deals with that in their relationship?
I would say like an advanced level of this is like, especially when you can default to, I love this person, I want to show them compassion, is then starting to get curious about what you're hearing and what that might be triggering in you, that you can't stay present to that person.
Yeah.
That's something I've started trying a lot to get better at, is to ask myself the question of like, if I know I care about this person, or if I know I trust this person, or if I know we ultimately have the same goals, what about this situation is triggering me? Because the knee-jerk reaction is to point the finger outward.
Yeah.
Why can't I stay patient here? Like, is there something I'm not catching that is making me want to get out of this conversation? But yeah, I mean, I think the level one is building a muscle around like, I love this person. We have similar goals. Sometimes like you want to. It's like almost like your own safe word. Like, all right, I feel this sense of like a shortness coming.
Yeah.
Like, you love this person, so
yeah.
maybe even state it out loud. hey, I know I want to pay attention to this, but for some reason I'm losing distraction. It might be that you might be busy. Mind might be occupied elsewhere. But building that muscle of like knowing your intention for how you want to show up in your communication helps you to kind of just snap out of it.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit more about just the idea of abundance and an abundance mindset in dating and in the early dating stages, or even when you're using dating apps or out there trying to meet people. What do you think are some signs that somebody is operating in their dating life with a scarcity mindset?
I think the sort of kind of some things that come to mind, I'll go slow with this. One, attachment to the ways relationships have gone wrong in the past. I think there's like a level of like vulnerability to share and work through things, but a lot of scarcity, I think, ends up with people almost like manifesting the thing that they don't want.
Yeah.
So I think a red flag of that is someone who almost seems to be, well, I don't, projecting negative things from past relationships into early parts of your own exploration. Games.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like inability to just be direct, inability to state what's coming up for them, rather than kind of having some indirect way of deflecting. I think that many of your listeners, I'm sure there are people who are dating for like casual, but I get the sense that many are dating for the long haul, or dating for at least commitment, whether that be for now or for forever. And I think that in order to find success in long-term dating, you actually have to be ready for it mentally.
Yeah.
And when you're ready for it, then you're willing to take that risk in and around stating your intentions. You're willing to get clearer or attempt, like continue down that path of getting more clear about what it is that you're looking for. And that's a commitment that you make to yourself. And I don't think that until you're willing to foster more abundance within yourself, you're not willing to make that level of commitment, and you play games.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think that also when you're not ready, you sort of have that mindset that it's not out there, that you won't find it. And sometimes I do think that that's a protection thing. Like you're not really fully ready for a relationship. So you're just telling yourself that story. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you can always find something that's a deal breaker, even though like you're picking all of these people to date. You're getting to that place, but you're always finding a deal breaker. Maybe that's part of the design that you don't even realize. I have a good friend who comes to mind. I won't say his name. Who always speaks about wanting to find a partner, wanting to find their person, but it seems as though like there's never any greater clarity around what it is that they're looking for in a person.
Why do you think that is?
Wow.
Not here to tell us.
No, it's not that I'm not here to tell. It's like, I mean, there's something. I think there's a. I hope you like maybe. I'm like. Maybe he might realize I'm speaking about him, but if you do, I think that there's something you're not willing to address that you're self-sabotaging with. I'm sorry. And I maybe should just give you that tough love conversation.
Yeah.
I think he'd brush me off.
I mean, I feel like I've been in that position before where it's like you're coming up with these little excuses why every single date is terrible or why you don't want to go out with them again. And it's like, I do think that usually is an indicator that there's something that you haven't quite worked out or figured out in terms of like what you're looking for, or like something in yourself that you're not fully happy with, or like that you're afraid to show somebody else. There's so many things that go into it. I also think something that in my mind I just always correlate with abundance is the idea of gratitude. So does that come into play in the journal or even in your own sort of daily practice of trying to bring these things into your life?
Yeah, I mean, gratitude is almost like the exercise that you do to strengthen the abundance muscle. Gratitude is, I think, hard for some people at first, especially like journaling with a gratitude practice. In the depth of my grief, this may be some of like the prototype work before the Abundance Journal came out. I had a practice every day where I would free write one page in a journal. I would turn the page and then I would write half a page of gratitudes. And there were points where it was really hard. I'm like, damn, this is like hard to find something new to be grateful for. And then it became really easy. It's like, I don't know, I'm grateful that that memory popped into my mind during my meditation. I'm grateful that my parents are healthy.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that my nieces are healthy. I'm grateful for that teacher that helped me gain confidence singing, that helps me be a public speaker. And all of a sudden, like you get really proficient at finding things to be grateful for, which then turns on when those funks come, because they do come. Like, oh man, I missed that business deal that I thought. I didn't get the reaction in that keynote speech, and it can become very like that muscle. I think is sadly like gets worked often. It gets worked when we consume social media. It gets worked in our business culture, which is so competitive. So we almost have to we have to strengthen the muscle of being able to find those gratitudes, and then being able to catch scarcity sneaking in, and then introduce the exercises to counteract the inertia of the scarcity.
Yeah. Would you do that gratitude practice at a certain time of day? Would you do it in the morning?
That was morning practice for me.
It is such a good way to start the day.
The thing is that it took a long time. I mean, that was an abundant thing too. I, at that moment, was playing with what it looks like to prioritize me and a ritual in the morning before anything else, before any email, before the opportunity that the news is going to introduce fear and scarcity in my mind. I lived with my parents during the pandemic. That was like, Olympic training for scarcity. My parents are, Jamaican immigrants who grew up, outside of, in like the 40s and 50s. They made a lot with very little here, and rightfully so. I think that in some ways I've had to learn how to see the abundance in them being prepared for the time and the mission that they were called for, and not to judge that, but also to be able to recognize how that is not the time and the mission. And so to be able to even wake up and spend an hour in the morning just checking in with myself at that time was just a great abundance to gift myself.
It's interesting, the idea of abundance in relation to time. I hadn't really thought about that before, but now what you said sort of sparked that in my head. It's like, I feel like we all think, like, that's my biggest excuse when there's something that I should do or want to do. My first reaction is like, but I don't have time. I don't have time.
Right.
So many things to do. That's like something that I really need to work on, because that is a mindset thing. I actually do have a lot more time than I think I do.
Yeah. I think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
I think there's like a deep dive into abundance and time, because as you're speaking, I'm like, well, that's the key. The time. It's the time that we have. That's why the grief part. That's why like the loss and the awareness that like shit, like if like my brothers could pass away like before 50, like, what am I doing? Like, I can take that risk. I can take this road trip. Like, I'm going to regret not doing that, not wanting to regret how we spent our time.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part in dating too, is like, we're always like kind of making either like we're not ready to invest a disproportionate amount of our time with a person. I think that's a big thing. I think that we maybe subconsciously are realize that we're making like this bet, like how many relationships don't work out?
Yeah.
How many marriages don't work out? So we're kind of like, man, is this a good investment of my time?
Yeah.
And even like that fear of like spending that time openly is a way that scarcity shows up and sabotages relationships.
Yeah, and it plays into timelines in relationships too, and feeling like, oh, I've been dating this person for this long and like we're not engaged yet, and am I wasting my time? It's like there's so much around time and abundance. I feel like that's a whole separate topic.
Yeah. I think something that's been really present for me, working through some actually like this like material wealth mission and manifestation, and then there were times when my dad was suffering, and I actually, like, we talk about the tank. I didn't have a tank full enough to like see him and hold him in the most gentle way possible. And it just makes me right now like hyper attuned to the quality of time I spend with my daughter, the quality of presence. Like, how divided am I when engaging with her? With Caroline, we work together in business and we have a relationship. So how thoughtful am I being right now at creating a very clean delineation between business partner and like, and my baby girl.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think that it's both wanting to get more clear with like how our individual time is spent, but then also how we're received when we're spending time with others.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple minutes ago social media and how that comes into play a lot with like the things that you feel, whether you're feeling abundance or scarcity. And I think that comparison comes up a lot, and that's like that comparison, like social media is at like the crux of that, which I feel like, especially when we're talking about dating, I think when you're scrolling through and all you're seeing is the best things of people's lives, you can start to feel jealous and like you're comparing, and those jealousy and comparison, I think in my mind, are such key parts of a scarcity mindset. And it's not just in dating, it comes into play like if you have a job that you are really hoping to get, or like a career goal, and then someone else achieves it, it's like you immediately have that reaction of like, why wasn't that me? And then you start to think like that means you can't have it because someone else does. So how do you think all those things come into play? Like the idea of like there's not enough out there for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think like the first, like the abundant view to that is first acknowledging that I feel that, you feel that. It's a common part of human nature. So when we can just like acknowledge and own it, this is the thing I try to teach people about empathy around racism, empathy around anything. It's like, once you're willing to own it, like, then like everything else from there is softer and is an improvement. The more you're attuned to like noticing once those yucky feelings come up is the more you can start to apply like gratitude right away. I was thinking about gratitudes as relates to like my relationship, and like something vulnerable that I can share is, I mean, there are times in any relationship, long-term relationship, where things get stale or things get maybe just like a little out of whack. Like we're like, in our relationship, we're treating each other too much like business partners.
Right.
And the willingness to almost like sit down and almost like trade, like, what are the things that are so abundant about our relationship, the things that we do well together, the things we've experienced together, the things that we have that others don't have, like, not to be petty, but like, we like, sometimes it's nice to sit down and build an abundance list together. And like, if you're good at doing it, then you can be good at modeling it to your partner, not just like in a ritual. It can be just subtle. It could be the thing that deflects a tense situation where it's like, remember that time, being able to bring levity to yourself and to the other person, build a muscle around that helps you to stay in your intention about how you want your communications to be.
Yeah. I'm also curious your perspective on sort of like the opposite of this, like can there be like too much of an abundance mindset? Like when we think about people using dating apps and thinking like there's so many options out there and like refusing to settle down because they always think they're going to find something better. How do you think that comes into play?
Well, I mean, I would argue that the behavior, I'm guilty of it. I just owned it like pretty heavily. This might be a topic of conversation later on, but nothing that she doesn't know. But no, it won't be. We actually we discussed like going on a dating podcast. We visualized out like what scenarios might be, what are things that might bring up tension. We talked about some of these things in advance. But I think that it's actually an example. Guys out there, ladies out there, if you're constantly like swiping and you don't feel like you're getting any closer, then pick up the abundance journal and start to examine where scarcity exists in your life. Because the more you can make sense of your patterns around scarcity is the more you can catch them and start to correct. So, but I think, it doesn't always have to be framed that way. In the sense that like continuing to date and dating multiple people, I don't want to bash that.
Yeah.
I think that it could be an example of your own like independence, agency, and willingness to keep looking till you find the things that you want. I think is it Thomas Edison that they said scrap that. There are two analogies that I have. Maybe the easiest one. Early in my career, I got a piece of advice around like how to find like that job that was going to be most fulfilling, and it was like a trustee at my college, and he said finding that job, that perfect career is kind of like trying on shoes. Like you'll try on a pair of shoes, you'll learn that it doesn't fit, and you'll know you don't want to wear that shoe anymore, but at least you'll know how that shoe fits. And like by the time you try, you actually have like a pretty good sense of shoes. You can make shoe recommendations as well. I don't know. Yeah. So like I think the dating a lot, if you're doing it intentionally and you are actually narrowing down what it is that you're looking for, if that is your intention, then it's quite empowering. It can be a great strategy. When I use dating apps, and I'd say somewhere in the middle, this certainly helped me to meet my wife. We met on Tinder.
Oh, you did? Okay.
But I had this thing, I work in advertising before and in branding, but I had this thing where I would write a profile that was like really specific, almost polarizing. It was meant to reach the type of person that I would want to spend time with, and that would find that interesting, and then turn everyone else off.
Yeah.
But it took a while. People would read and be like, "Really, you wrote this in your profile?" I'm like, yeah, I did.
Which is a good thing.
And even like I still have that like gleefulness, because it was like I was starting to know myself so well that I was willing to like put out something that would attract the type of person that I would want to spend time with.
I think so many times people think they're so clear on what they're looking for, but they're not clear on knowing themselves. And that's so much more important, is knowing what you're putting out there and what you're like offering to a relationship. Okay, so tell everybody where they can get the journal and how, sort of like your tips on how to use it for the most success.
Yeah. So the Abundance Journal Guide to Living a Full Life can be found at Anthropology Online.
Oh, cool.
It can be found at Amazon. Well, I know it eventually will be at maybe by the time this is on. But that was one thing like I heard. I was like, yes, we're in anthropology.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Look at this thing. It's like perfect. It's perfect for anthro, right? And it is a 30 days, 30 prompts, based off of the same model as my book, The Power of Empathy, but just like really to the point with prompts that really like cut through, help to bring up that emotional charge for you and set you up to explore the day's prompt. So I believe the first day is is it joy?
Well, day 1 is defining abundance.
Okay, great. So perfect. Day 1 is defining abundance. Day 2 is joy. So in day 1, you start to actually set your intentions for this round of exploration. The way I recommend people go into the book is go in with a specific area. I love that you asked me what is an area that I'm trying to manifest more abundance around. Like, don't judge it. Go in with that area. You'll probably learn different things than where you set out on that journey, but go in with a point. Make the book work for you.
Yeah.
Like, go into day 1 defining abundance with the specific area of growth. It may be around a project. It may be around the love that you want to manifest. It may be around rekindling love in your relationship. Whatever it is, like literally, this is like I want to say this straight to camera is like be totally selfish with this book. Because you're going to get the rest too. Empathy works that way. So just go in and take care of yourself. I would say, I've been playing with the book myself recently again after writing it. And I've been enjoying like flipping through and finding a heading, a day theme that speaks to me that day and then working through that day. The way the book was intended was if you do have a growth goal in mind, that if you work through the 30 days, it should help you to unpack that gradually. But I like almost like treating it like a tarot card and flipping through, finding the prompt and working with that for the day.
Yeah, I'm laughing to myself because my mom is a big tarot card person. Now she's going to love you even more. But I am so excited to use it. Thank you for bringing it to the world. I am, like I said, I have a lot of abundance things that I'm working on right now that I'm trying to bring in. And I think this is really going to help. So I really appreciate you coming on. I also want you to tell everyone,
what is your abundance manifestation goal right now?
For me, it is really in the like wealth and career area that I'm trying to bring in abundance. Always trying to bring in abundance of things in the way of relationships in my life. But I also am just excited to go through it because I think it will uncover a lot of things. Yeah. You've been doing this cool thing on Instagram where you've been kind of going through a day, a different day through a series of posts. So also tell everyone where they can find you on social media because that is a cool thing for them to watch if they're considering getting the journal.
Yeah. So you can find me at Michael Tennant NYC. Even though I've moved out of NYC, I'm not dropping my New York card. I'm born and bred, and I'm saying transplants, we're not the same. But I love you too. But no. I'm in New York recording, and so I feel that kind of New York bravado coming my way. But one thing I wanted to say is major update on the material abundance piece on my side today. There's a little bit of knock on wood, but I feel really good about it. I've been just like diversifying how we bring revenue into our ecosystem.
Yeah.
I'm doing some writing for Inc. magazine. But a couple weeks ago, a good friend of mine who I just like haven't been paying attention, I realized is now a publisher at a media organization.
Oh, amazing.
Just keeping some things confidential for now. But, I managed to get on the phone with him and say like, hey, here are the things that need to be true for me. This is what I'm looking for. And we pretty much have like found a match that will close the gap that I've been looking to close.
Oh my God.
Which then means that like I get to work with someone that I know I love. Like I've been rocking with this guy for over a decade.
Yeah.
We came up together. I'm working on material that I enjoy. I get to do it alongside Caroline transparently. So we get to do our 1-2 punch, creative director, strategist. And so, I feel goosebumps right now because it's like what the last 7 years has taught me is like, I don't want to go back into some toxic environment in order to close a material gap.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into a toxic relationship to close an insecurity gap. I want to get really clear about what abundance is going to look like for me. And I want to put that out into the world and find my people.
Yeah. That's so incredible. And I mean, congratulations, but also like you did the work and now you're also, I think a huge part of it is that you're bringing the work to so many other people. So like the intentions are so good that helps you, I feel like, bring in what you're trying to really manifest. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
So you're on your way. I can't wait to check in.
I hope so.